record.
Yeah, I kind of like.
There we go.
I never really have like a
start.
So welcome.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. So lovely to have you on the show. You can't see, but in the background we've got my producer over there. I don't really. I listen to Russell Brand's podcast all the time, and I love it when he's like, "We should get so and so on the show," and then he's like, "Can you sort that out?" And he's just got all these people around him, and it seems like he's got such a nice life.
I know, that'd be great. Well, maybe you should just ask on your show now for a producer. And then once you've got the producer, then you can just name all the people that you want, and then the producer can sort it out from there.
Get to work. Get to work.
Yeah,
exactly.
So we want a producer in Sam's life, please, to be sitting on the other end of the couch, fulfilling all the wishes. What was the question again?
The question.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, just kind of what you've been up to, really, because obviously your record came out in 2020.
Yeah. So a lot of last year was sort of just preparing for the record, but trying to figure out, how the hell to release a record without shows, which proved tricky, as you know, to work out. But, there were things happening, and most of them were online, and you just sort of had to be more. I found myself being more grateful for that interaction than I have been before, I think. Just to know that some people were listening and enjoying the record. So that was cool. And then I did not feel like writing anything last year. It was a really dry year for creativity for me, because I just really wasn't in the frame of mind. We were all sort of firefighting, weren't we, and weren't sure what was going to happen when. And so this year I kickstarted the year by doing a course, actually, at Berkeley, and it was all online. It was a 12-week course, and it was called Getting Inside Harmony #2. And
cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like loads about music theory and harmony, and sort of based in jazz, but obviously you can apply it to songwriting as well. Even if you're sort of a folky Americana singer-songwriter like me, which, a lot of it is based on three chords and the truth. But I really wanted to get out of that, to be honest. Not from the scene completely. I do love a lot of music from that scene. But I'd been doing it for a while already, trying to like really extend my music theory and like just to have more tools in my songwriting kit so I could make decisions about that were more informed rather than only feeling my way into, different keys within a song or something like that. So that was really cool and that gave me also something that I'd been lacking the year before, which was like any sort of deadlines or external people or stimulation saying like, okay, this is your homework for the week, and then here's your assignment. And it ended up probably being an hour or two a day, but you could sort of go into it more deeply than that if you wanted to, and just immerse yourself in this world of harmony. Wow,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really good.
As an experience, what was that like then? On the whole, because I think a lot of online learning or solitary learning like that can be, I don't know, I guess it's quite nice to take it at your own pace, but we've done a lot of things online in the last year.
Yeah no, it was really good. They already did the courses online, so it wasn't sort of trying to make the most of a bad situation. It was just what they usually did anyway. So they were quite versed in that, which was cool. And I really got a lot out of it. Towards the end, I realized that we were going into territories that I would probably never go into with my songwriting. So I have to admit I lost a little bit interest by the end. I can't even remember what we were doing towards the end. But I really felt like sort of 10 weeks in, I was like, right, I want to and, obviously taking notes on everything and just building up all this knowledge. But I really was desperate to start putting it into practice. So it was cool to finish that up and then start writing songs with this newfound knowledge, and sort of going back over. I tried to be quite studious about it and go back over each lesson. And what often happens, I think, through learning new things is that I'll start, reading through my notes or whatever, and then having a little play around with, some of the examples that have been given or whatever. And that generally often then leads me off into a song, and I go, oh, wow, I've learnt this, and now I can put it into a song. And that's where a deeper sort of learning comes in, when you start to put it into practice, rather than just absorb it all, but you're playing it. So that was great. And it's really interesting as well when you learn more about your craft, isn't it? Because then you sort of realize that sometimes you also don't need to overcomplicate things, and and you've got all these options, but actually it might be better if you just stick to 4 chords in this song or whatever, or you mostly do that, and then you have a moment where you go off on one or whatever and head somewhere else completely for a bridge and then bring it back. Or there's just sort of more options available, which I've really been enjoying, actually. And so we'll see where they go.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because I often think that, because I didn't go to uni to learn, music education or anything like that. And it's always been very emotion led, really.
Yeah.
And I guess my learning has always been in learning other people's songs. I've always found that I've learned a lot that way.
Yeah.
Taking on someone else's lens. But having said that, I'm always talking to Emma, because she's like a real music nerd.
Oh, okay.
And
did she studied music?
Yeah,
did she
studied at ACM.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
I'm always like, how does this chord relate to that, and then what can I do with this? But it's interesting, because she's always like, well, you could learn all of that, but you don't need to.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
and you don't.
But if I learned all of that, surely then I would know more. She's like, yeah, you know more, but like, would that benefit
Would it
you?
would it be better or not? I don't know the answer, to be honest. I might have just written terrible songs recently. Maybe like, what the hell?
She's really thought about this way too much.
Yeah, she's trying to be clever.
Just trying to get rather than 3 chords in the truth. It's like,
as many chords as possible.
As many chords.
And lies.
And lies.
No, hopefully
well, it's
not.
interesting though, isn't it? Because I think it's all about what interests you.
Yeah.
And what inspires you to take that next step. Because I think the one thing that I find really inspiring about you is that you are always on to the next thing, and like you're always touring.
Yeah, used to be the case.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember bumping into you when I don't think we knew each other that well, but we had like a brief conversation, and you were like, yeah, I just need to stop saying yes to gigs for a little bit, And it was like, it almost sounded like a revelation to you that you could do that. You could actually do that.
Yeah, totally. And I think this last year, I've definitely, having stepped back from all our usual patterns and ways of doing things, it's been really good to then say no to some things, or just with the newfound sort of comfort of and familiarity of being home in a way much more, and enjoying aspects of that. I don't always, and I can't wait to do some more gigging and touring, but there's a balance, and I think that it was out of whack for quite a time. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah. Yes, I think so. I say yes, but I still feel like my kind of like touring is dwarfed by what you've got up to in recent years. But having said that, looking ahead at the tour that I've got in October and November, it's kind of like, I'm like, whoa, I'm slightly daunted by how many dates there are. And I know that once we get into the swing of it, but it's like, especially because, I'll be, for the first one, I'm supporting Newton Faulkner, and then I'll be like doing all the driving. And I'm like, wow, that's going to be really knackering.
Yeah, I know. I'm in bed by like 10:30 or something at the latest most nights. And this week we've done 3 shows, and I'll be like, oh my goodness, it's so late. I'm quite a morning person naturally, but it's been great. It's been good to do some. But I know what you mean. I haven't sort of got, not until January next year in Australia. Hopefully it can all go ahead, but that's my first tour, and the rest are just sort of one-offs around the UK until then, pretty much. So yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it'll be fun to do. I'm sure you'll remember it all and all. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
be in flow
for sure,
with no
definitely.
time.
And I actually feel super grateful, that I've got these dates coming up, and I'm really looking forward to them. Really. It's just a bit more like, oh wow,
my goodness,
that's quite a lot of dates. That's not a lot of days off,
No.
Like, but it's a funny thing though, isn't it? Because I find that bringing performance every night again and again. I mean, the support tour is going to be pretty easy on my part, because it's just like 30 minutes of, it's what it's like. Support tours, they can be actually really good
dreamy.
fun in that way.
Yeah. They're the best.
Swan
I just want to
late.
be support artist to big acts all the time.
Oh yeah.
It's dreamy.
What's the biggest act that you've supported?
It would have to be Frank Turner, I guess, or Jose Gonzalez in Australia.
Nice.
Probably Frank. Well, we played with him at the Olympics opening ceremony, so that was absolutely massive. That was the biggest one. Yeah. But that wasn't a support, actually, so I'm just bragging now and going off track.
What's the catering like at that one?
Oh my goodness, Kenneth Branagh was in the catering.
Oh really? Yeah. Was he cooking?
No, he wasn't. Just shaking people's hands and being very polite.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was pretty epic. And I've joined Frank sort of in his band for some really big shows, like when he headlined Wembley Arena as well. And that's been really cool. I would say my other biggest gigs have been with him as well. I've been touring with him for maybe 12 years now, on and off. And we've toured all through Europe and the UK and Australia together. That's been great. And just things like catering everywhere you go. That's really fun.
Yeah.
And nice venues and relatively little responsibility compared to when you do your own headline tours. And
definitely, it's the pressure and everything. It's just off, isn't it?
I know.
You're not thinking about ticket sales. You're not thinking about. Well, you are thinking a bit about merch and stuff, but
not much. And especially when you do them solo, or just like I often tour with Lukas. Obviously, he's my husband, for those who don't know, double bassist, and he's a brilliant musician. And we'll just be traveling around in a van or whatever and meet people there. We did this one amazing tour in Germany, actually, opening shows for Runrig. And
oh yes,
yeah, and they are huge in Germany. And we were just driving around in our transit and sleeping in like some woods somewhere between the shows. We'd drive like halfway to the next show, and then we'd get to the big, like all the venues were, I think the biggest was like 11,000 capacity, and the smallest was like 2,000 or something like that. And we would rock up as soon as we were allowed to be there, which was around 11 a.m. and they had menus. So we'd have like, we'd arrive and there'd be like a buffet, breakfast bar sort of thing. And we'd just hang out at this venue and eat our 3 meals and shower there and everything. So we didn't even have to do hotels. We were just staying in the van, and that was pretty cool. Very cruisy. Yeah.
That's
They're
pretty
good.
awesome.
Yeah, bring on the support tours.
Bring on them. I know.
Oh, you'll have a good time. You've toured with Newton a lot, haven't you, in the past?
Yeah, we have, and actually, it's really nice. It's like a real, it's a family affair with Newton and his sister and his brother, and it's chill.
It's lovely,
it's
that
chill.
familiarity. I tour in the States a lot with Mary Chapin Carpenter, and she's become a really good friend, and all her band as well. And she was very generous in that I was able to travel on her tour bus, so didn't have to, try to keep up with driving 8 or 9 hours, which obviously would happen for them during the night. That would have been too much. But she's really, really generous like that, and such a lovely way to see the States as well. Just rock up and I'd have the whole day pretty much. So to go off on a run and find a good coffee shop and walk around, and it's lovely.
I do love that. It's a bit like travelling around as like a travelling circus in that way, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we did that with Newton through Europe, and I remember just sort of falling asleep looking out the little window in the little cabin.
Thinking, lovely.
Where we're gonna wake up tomorrow. I love that. I mean, I could just. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know what it harks back to. For some people, that just sounds like probably
a nightmare. I'm sure.
A nightmare, yeah, but. And it can be a bit exhausting, right, being on the road in that way. But
absolutely.
There's something really fascinating about just seeing new people, cognitively, it really kind of stimulates you in a way like nothing else.
Oh, and new places as well. Just being somewhere else I really have yearned for that this past year or 18 months or whatever. Just being somewhere else, it makes you. I find it so inspiring, just walking around, seeing different people and cultures, hearing and different buildings and architecture, and we've been so privileged to have a life like that, I think, and it really becomes a part of you, and I have learnt to appreciate standing still. It's the longest that I've ever done in my life, as I'm sure it is for so many musicians, but But yeah, there's something about moving that and being somewhere else that just really inspires you. Me, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I think it's kind of helps you to, I don't know, we're always thinking about mindfulness or being in the moment and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And actually, I feel like I've really tried hard in the last 18 months to kind of be, okay, no, everything's going to be fine. I'm just going to meditate.
Yeah.
Just going to bring everything back to the moment, and everything's going to be all right. But actually, a lot of those experiences that were taken away from us, especially that moving around and meeting people, you're constantly stimulated by other things that aren't yourself and your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. But they all pull you into the moment, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very much so. So I've really missed that. I got really obsessed with watching travel documentaries, but mainly cycling or people doing mad stuff.
Yeah.
I watched a really lovely documentary about I forget the name of it now, but it's about these 4 Irish guys who build this traditional boat, and then they sail it from Ireland to is it Galicia? I can't remember the name of the pilgrimage in Spain.
El Camino?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then they walk the El Camino as well. And actually, your man from Once.
Oh, right, yes.
The Irish singer-songwriter who I've forgotten the name of.
We have paused. Oh, there we go. The Frames, Glenn Hansard.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Oh, no,
yes.
I'm just here for memory recall.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
He joined them for a stint.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And it's just a really lovely documentary, and they're kind of, it's a real physical thing that they undertake, but none of them are kind of super young or super fit, and there's sort of philosophies that they kind of undertake as well, and are reminded by on that trip is a really cool thing.
Yeah. Oh, I'll seek that out.
It's on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Yeah, I'll find that. That sounds wonderful.
I am interested to know, with your, so what album was the last album in terms of numbers now? What have you racked up in your time?
Okay, so I have done 6 albums as Emily Barker, or Emily Barker and the Red Clay Halo. Excuse me. And I've done various collaborations. So I've done an album with a Swedish fella who produced my very first solo album. And we were called Vina Porte, and with Dom Coyote, who's a theatre maker mostly, Bristol based. And we were a trio. We released an album in about 2014, something like that. And then I released an album with Applewood Road, with 2 girls from Nashville, Amy Speece and Amber Rubath, and we did this album that was very much focused on 3-part harmonies around one microphone at a studio in Nashville. That was a beautiful album to make, but sort of fraught for various reasons in terms of it being an intercontinental band and us each being singer-songwriters in our own right. So it was incredibly difficult to make schedules meet, and so a little bit too complex for to continue. I also did a collaboration with Mary Waterson, so the folk hero lineage. And with Ardem producing that, Ardem Ilhan, and Lukas is on that one as well. Done a couple of EPs. Before, when I first came over to the UK, I was working with a guitarist that I met in Cambridge called Rob Jackson, and we did 2 albums as The Low Country, and then after that I went solo. So I think I'm up to 12 records or something like that. 12 records maybe, and a couple of EPs and some music for film, and so
that's incredible.
I guess it is. There's quite a lot going on, but I'm so old now, so
No, you're not.
I turned 40 last year, so
Did you?
I did, yeah.
Oh, happy birthday for 40 last year.
Thank you very much. It was quite good because it was they lifted the restrictions on my birthday on the 2nd of December, so that you're allowed to gather outside with 6 people. So I met up with my band around the bonfire. So Rob and Beth and Pete and B and me and Lukas, and we ate curry around a fire. And compared to what, restrictions had been, that just felt like the best thing that we could possibly be allowed to do. It was freezing. It was about 5 degrees. But it was great nonetheless. And that's what I found with all these new freedoms. We were like, oh, wow, I can meet 5 other people. This is exciting. Yeah, so that was cool. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's such a body of work to... How do you feel like... I guess there's a couple of questions I wanted to ask you around writing, and especially with your last album, because I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And it really, I don't know, there's a lot of songs on there that resonate with me. And I guess with that album in particular, I wondered how that one came about in terms of the themes and
Well, I realise, I always find I forget things about my process, and then as I'm doing them I go, oh yeah, that's how I've been here before, it's going to be all right. But with that one, or with all albums, I think I just start somewhere without a theme in mind often, and just write. And usually what happens is after about 5 or 6 songs, I start to realize that there's a theme, or a theme comes to me through writing those, even if they are not connected to it. And then I sort of settle into that and see how it feels with writing a few songs around that theme. And then often what happens is, once I feel like, oh yeah, this is definitely what I feel, what's going on in general, then I find it really easy to write from that point. But initially it's sort of like, scrambling around in the dark, sort of. There's so many like things that we can write about, obviously. It's just infinite. So it's good after writing some songs, when it feels like you can channel into a theme. So with A Dark Murmuration of Words, I think I wrote about 40 songs or something like that towards that record. And I worked on it with my Stroud bass band, so Pete Rowe and Rob Pemberton and Lukas Drinkwater, who you've worked with all of them before, and we've all toured together, haven't we? Yep.
We have indeed.
We have indeed.
That was a good tour.
It was great in Germany.
It's cold.
It was bloody cold. All the beer froze in the van. Everything froze. Apples, all the hummus. We had a rider, but it froze. We were like, it's fine. We don't need to stop. We don't have time to get to the venue and stop for lunch. So let's just... Oh, it's all frozen. Yeah. But, sorry, there's some landscape work being done sort of just down the valley from me, so which is probably coming up. But
down the valleys of Stroud.
Down the valley, yeah. Everywhere's down the valley or up the valley in Stroud. But so with that I started working, I had like a year pretty much of pre-production with the band, and we worked up a lot of the songs, and we probably worked up about 20 of the 40 songs, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then whittled that down to 12 that we ended up recording when we went to Pembrokeshire to make the record. And through...
Were you recording demos at that? Like, were you recording those?
Yeah, we
so
were.
Working them up and recording them.
Yeah. And that was really useful to get, obviously, a sense of, production, how they would turn out. But also, I was able to then somehow, I think when you share what you're creating and having that validation from other players, team members, can really help you sort of be more focused from then on with your writing as well, because they sort of help you decide. Because I find I get completely lost if I've got 40 songs and I'm like, I don't know which ones are any good anymore. I love them all because I've spent ages working on them. I mean, you often have a sense for what ones might be stronger, but you've put so much into all of them that it is hard to have any perspective on them, I think. So having other people help with that is really useful. Do you find that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I was just sort of putting myself in your position there, because it's like, I've never had 40 songs for an album before. That is so many songs.
Yeah.
That's amazing. But I've definitely had too many songs to fit on an album.
Yeah.
But I think something that I've found over the years is to be not too influenced necessarily by what other people say, and actually really stick with my gut on a lot of things. Because in the past, I think it probably comes from an insecurity of like, oh yeah, but I'm not really a producer. Or I haven't deep down, I haven't won any songwriting awards yet, so somebody else has probably got a better idea than I have.
Yeah.
So you're kind of drawn, especially if someone's like, oh, I think this is really good or whatever. So
yeah, if they're very strongly, towards something, then it's hard to not take that on.
Yeah, I think it's because it's, or if you've got like recently, I did some working on some demos and with a producer, and then the producer was like, oh, I think we should work on these ones. And I was like, okay. Well, they're actually the ones that I were like right down the pecking order as far as like whether I thought they might be one of the parent songs on the record, if you will.
Yeah.
And so that kind of threw me a little bit because I was like, oh, okay. But then you kind of want to honor the producer's vision in that way as well, right? So, how was that with 40 songs? Like, did you get pulled in loads of different directions before you settled on a kind of like, this is where we're going with it?
Yeah, I always am, I think. But I feel like once we started playing the songs then and recording what we'd done, it really just consolidated things and massively actually. And so we sort of got a bit of a sound palette going on. And then from that I found I could write to that in a really great way. Like it just gave me some parameters. And then I think from there I was really able to more strongly develop the theme and think about aspects of the theme that I hadn't covered. And so like, for instance, so a lot of the album is about the climate crisis. And then and there's sort of songs that talk about the grief of that, and and anxiety, and sort of mostly through telling stories. But I realized I didn't have a song that felt hopeful, and that's absolutely something that we need as well, because otherwise there's we just give up, don't we? So then I sought out a hopeful sort of story that I could tell, and found this story about Wangari Maathai, who started the Greenbelt movement in Kenya in 1977. And so that was quite a conscious move, where a lot of the others had, I was also feeling hope, but I really realized that was sort of lacking. So I wrote that song with a purpose, sort of thing. And that happened, I think, like 2 weeks before we went into the studio, or certainly very, very close to heading in there. Whereas I thought I'm finished writing. And after writing so many songs, you're like, I am done. Like, I think we've definitely got the album, but you can sort of start listening to it as a whole piece of work and then go, I feel like I need to balance it in this way.
Definitely.
And that is a really great place to write from, I find, because it's you've got some sort of limitations, whereas when you're just writing, like we said before, it's just infinite. Like you can write anything and in any way. So
definitely, it feels like an endless. I don't know, when you were talking, then I was imagining kind of like an endless painting, it just keeps stitching onto the next thing. But until you go, no, wait a second, you've got to fit all on one canvas, and actually you're this colour, you're that colour.
Yeah.
And actually we need this kind of colour to come in now.
Exactly.
And to complete the picture.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because like, I've got friends that, one friend in particular, Natalie Holmes, is a singer-songwriter, and she is embarking on making her first album. She's never written an album before.
Wow.
But she's done loads of EPs and I don't know whether that's, I don't really know. I don't even know why I write albums.
Yeah.
like
instead of just singles or.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know where that started in terms of, I guess my understanding of the album as an art form is, you get a collection of songs together and there's a theme possibly, or there's something that interlinks it, and then there's artwork, and then it all ties it together. I mean, it's all funneling into to be a commercial product.
Yeah.
So I think for me, I had to find my own way into kind of like why it is that I was, making an album.
Yeah. And why? What did you what was your answer?
Well, I guess for me, the bigger picture is songwriting. Why do I write songs?
Yeah.
Which was another question I was going to ask you, actually.
Okay, yeah.
And it's like, for me, it's always been a sort of a therapy, really, ever since
Absolutely.
I was a kid. Just like, I've got these feelings inside me, and I've actually found a conduit, a kind of voice for myself through this expression.
Yeah.
And so an album has just become a bigger song. It's like, it's just like, it's a chorus, you know, it's a chorus of songs, a flock of songs that are all singing from the same direction, and they're headed to the same place, you know, but they've all got their own individual characteristics and that kind of thing. And I guess really the more I've got into enjoying albums of other artists, the more I've understood, you know, what you can do with an album and well, the endless things I guess you could do with an album.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I agree. I feel exactly the same as you, like why we write songs, but I also got into it for the same reasons that you say about it being sort of your way of understanding the world and your feelings and your relationships and position in the world, and I continue to write songs for that same reason. And I think as I get older, I also realize that I really love to learn, and a lot of what goes into my songs are things that I'm reading and feel like there's important messages to share. So, for example, with the climate crisis, I feel like artists don't have to have this responsibility of sort of emoting the science or like speaking for a lot of people, but it feels like we're grappling with such huge issues and that have always been there, but are really, you know, really urgent now. And there's so many emotions that come from that, like grief and anxiety and you know, stress and things like this. And so I feel like and that's probably through performing songs. I feel like people need to hear these or have like an outlet themselves. If they're not creative themselves, have an outlet that they can express those feelings of grief and stress and worry, and as well as understand that they're not the only people thinking or feeling that. And that's something, you know, that I got into songwriting first and then performing. If you make a career of your songwriting, that's, you know, often leads to performance, which is a whole other entirely different art, really. But there's so much in that exchange between songwriter and listener, I think. And I do feel like it's quite it is an ancient tradition, isn't it, in many ways, like music and people listening and storytelling as well. So the storytelling aspect is really important to me. And I realized recently I've been doing, I know you've done this in the past, but doing songwriting workshops and mentorship with various people. But I was up in Moniac Moor in Scotland, and they run courses for kids who've been through the foster system. Two of the kids were homeless, and one of them had been writing since he was 10 years old, and it's been his only constant thing in his whole life. And
wow,
yeah, and he was just so open and trusting and beautiful and sharing so many really intense experiences that he's had, but pouring them into this song, and that we were writing, and then we recorded, and I feel, you know, seeing that in action, you know, having not been through the experiences that he's had, but knowing how much I needed it, at various points in my life and continue to need it. And then just seeing how it can change people and how it's such a positive way of channeling our thoughts and feelings and experiences. And I've been thinking a lot recently about how the most important thing is process rather than product. Mm-hmm. And, I'm fortunate as you are to have, be able to turn our music into a production that people buy or, stream or whatever, and do some shows and things like that. But actually the real magic, I think, and essence and importance is in the writing. Just that
Definitely.
Process. Yeah.
I was talking to somebody about that. I don't think it was in one of these conversations that I've had on this podcast, but it was about I think this is what we're talking about. It's like there's no greater kind of feeling than the unraveling of that moment.
Yeah.
And it is even in those moments when you're performing it and stuff, and you can have a great performance of it, but it's a performance of the process and that moment.
Yeah.
That moment only happens once.
Yeah.
And it's for you, and it's a really powerful experience.
Yeah. I feel like that's about the arts in general as well. Not solely limited to music, but, writing poetry or painting or just expression. And it really, breaks my heart when, Boris cuts funding to music in high schools and tells us to get another to retrain, and, further fundings cut from the arts. And it's so important to so many people and to mental well-being, and it affects all aspects of our life from there. I really wish that that it was valued more on a sort of government level.
Yeah, I mean, not to defend Boris at all, but maybe he's never experienced that.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah,
he's never experienced, and I'm not defending him in that way, but it's like,
doesn't understand, just
does not understand the kind of the breadth of the understanding that you can gain from yourself and for other people as well through expressing those moments.
Absolutely. I'm just imagining us knocking on the door of number 10 and saying, "Hi, Boris, we've come to mine your emotions through a songwriting workshop today." He might become a more compassionate human being.
I think that and some magic mushroom tea. And I think all our problems will be sorted.
Yeah, that's not what you're on right now, I take it.
No, it's not.
You said, and some magic mushroom tea. Here we go.
No, this is some fine coffee.
I love your cup. It's a very nice
Thank
cup.
you. I am very lucky to have this cup because it's from Milk Teeth.
Oh, where we met for coffee.
Yeah.
Last year at some point.
Unfortunately, Josh has closed the shop.
Oh, no.
And I said to him at the time, I love those cups.
Yeah.
And he kept one for me, which was really cute of him.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame
really
it's closed.
Yeah.
I liked that place.
He wanted a new chapter. He's now doing this thing called Upwards Coffee, where he sort of, I don't know why I went like that. What is it? Upwards Coffee.
Better that than Upwards
Downwards
Coffee. That would have been confusing.
He's doing like pop-ups, and he's also running courses. In fact, I did a barista course with him recently.
Did you?
Which was kind of cool. Interesting. It was at 9:00 in the evening, or was it a little bit earlier than that? But anyway, I was drinking coffee really late at night.
Whoa. I can't handle that. Was it fun?
It was actually all right. It was all right. I slept. So that
you
was
still
good.
slept?
Yeah, I slept, but I had 2 flat whites at like 9:00 at night.
Oh, wow.
But I just kind of, I hadn't drunk coffee during the day because I knew I was going to drink coffee at night, and I just sort of saw it as a dessert, because you do have coffee after dinner sometimes, don't you? And we don't often think about how that's going to keep us up. It's usually because I'm on holiday.
I can never have coffee after dinner. Honestly,
Really?
I would be up till 7 a.m. I can't even have it. I can't even have it in the afternoon. I pretty much can have one coffee a day, and coffee is my favourite drink, and you know how obsessed I am with it.
Yeah.
But I can only have one in the morning, and otherwise I lose my mind completely.
I'm similar. I can have two.
Yeah.
I can't, and I try not to drink beyond sort of 3 o'clock or something.
Yeah.
But I quite like that because it almost becomes this sort of shamanic ritual.
Oh yeah, I'm
you know, and something that Russell Brand talks a lot about on his podcast is like rituals. How we don't have enough sort of healthy rituals in our life. You know.
Great. This is how I'm gonna justify it. I mean, because coffee is like the most important part of my day, even though it only happens once. But I think, like you said, it's because it's like I treasure that moment. And if I'm on tour, I do drive Lukas slightly bonkers with like needing to, but it has to be a ritual. It has to be something that is like a focused thing and take time at like either finding like the best cafe where I can get the best coffee in that city or town, and we have to drive there and, you know, and sit down and take our time. Yeah. Or I've got my little coffee kit, which I've made coffees for you, I think, before from Henry.
Still got the little leather bag.
Yeah, still got the little old leather camera case,
it's
a rectangular camera case, and got all the coffee paraphernalia in there. But it has to be, you know, it has to be a nice ritual. And I love making coffee for people as well. So
yeah, me too. I enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
I think the only problem is doing this barista course. I was like, oh man, this coffee is amazing.
Now I need 10 grand to get a machine or something.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That
One
is the
day.
only problem with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just going back to what we were talking about sort of expression and different forms of expression. Are there any other forms of art, or actually it doesn't even have to be art? Is there any other forms of expression that you practice that kind of play into your, feed into your inspirations?
Yes, definitely. Two things. One, I realised this recently, but I'm like quite obsessive with like lining things up and like the balance in a room. I'm weird.
I'm now looking behind
I know,
you and
like
your books
it's fairly, and stuff. But like I like, and I don't know where I get. My mum's like this, and my Dutch grandparents were as well. They were a bit. I mean, I might get there by their age. They were like everything like neat and sort of, I don't know. They're way more. See, I'm not clean, but I'm tidy. They're different things. Okay. Like there can be dust and stuff. That's fine. But but there's a certain. I guess it's feng shui. I was supposed to. Yeah, that's totally fine. Anywhere, dust is acceptable. But like, if there's like, we've got this coffee table, and I've got some poetry books on it, and like a notebook and various other things, and there's this piece of cloth that runs along the middle that I got in this tiny Swedish village. Like boot fair sort of thing, and it goes across the middle of the table, and like I just like that to be really like all the lines of things. Like I'm hyper aware of lines of like that little tablecloth and then the books and like just I don't know. That's a weird one, but just things being like artistically. Oh yeah, he just is like, oh my god. But just it's an aesthetic. It's like I studied art, and there's something about in that that I just like. It's almost like framing things with my vision, like composing. When I like it to feel balanced in some way. So that's like a weird one.
Do you do much photography?
I don't. I do obviously on my camera and stuff like that, and I mean my phone. Not, you know. Yeah. But and that I really just enjoy that, like, you know, getting down on hands and knees, like angles, but I used to do painting and yeah, I've done a bit of photography, but not lots. But I really like that. And then the other thing that's like less neurotic and more sort of connected to songwriting that I do is write poetry, and I've been doing that for a couple of years now. I've always been a huge fan of poetry, and I've used it a lot to inspire songwriting in a really sort of almost using it to stimulate my subconscious. But just if I'm writing a song, and I'll often have a poetry book near me, and I won't even read a poem, but I'll just flick a poetry book open and read like a couple of stanzas. And there's something about that being such a small window into a poem that it often somehow informs the song in some way. But then I've also read, full poems and enjoyed that over the years, and always wanted to begin writing poetry, but did not know where to start. I was like, I don't know anything about form. Can you just like what happens? And so I joined this poetry school, poetryschool.com, and they have loads of different courses available that you do online, or some are in person as well. And I sort of lied and said that I was an experienced poet and got on this one course. But in a way, I felt like, well, I have been writing songs for 20 years, so I'm not. I write, and I'm informed with, about structure and form and storytelling, and anyway, and that was a brilliant way to start. And what that particular course was all about was called Voicing Rootlessness, and that was all about immigration and quite a lot of poems by refugee poets, and sort of displacement and things like this, and also empire and things like that. And I grew up in Australia, and but live in the UK, so there was lots sort of related about living in a home away from home and things like that. And every 2 weeks on that one, you sort of get all these readings to study, and then you write a poem. The tutor gives you a prompt from those readings, and you submit your poem to the whole class, which, yeah, I was like, I've never written a poem before, but I wrote one, and had honestly no idea what I was doing, but sent it in, and then everybody critiques your work, and I've done numerous poetry school courses now, and I've loved opening up the sort of early stages of work. Whereas with songwriting, I hide away and I write a song, and I don't show anyone until I bring it to the band, sort of thing. And then it's not even like I wouldn't generally ask them for critique on the songwriting, that we would just perform it or not, and if it wasn't working, then it would probably get scrapped, sort of thing, or if it didn't feel good enough. Whereas, and I'd read this book by Mary Oliver, and she said that about writing poems, and she said she usually edits her poems 50 to 70 times. And I was like, wow. And then I forget who it was, somebody else said, like, usually you like they would write a poem and put it in a drawer for 10 years, and but after 10 years, then you're ready to finish it. So it's a completely different way of writing. It's incredibly, like, long and, very heavy on the edits sort of process, and can constantly change. And even poems, after they get published, people often change them after that as well.
Right.
Yeah, which is quite interesting. But I've absolutely loved doing that, and actually that's been another thing that has got me through this year and a bit, is doing a few courses. And at one point I think I was doing 3 online courses, and they're pretty affordable too, and they're just with amazing tutors and who give you prompts. And so there was one I did for 10 weeks where you had to write a poem a week in response to just one poem. and we spent 2 hours online, and we'd talk about this one poem, which was by a published author, and we'd critique that all together, and then we'd critique 3 of our own poems that we'd written, and then the next week somebody else would get to have their poem workshopped. And it's just fascinating, hearing all these responses. It really makes you like leave your ego at the door and just you have to be open, and it always betters the poem if you're open to the critique. And I find actually often it's the less experienced writers who are defensive and then the people who are more experienced tend to be completely open about critique.
So would that still not influence the way that you think about songwriting then, or do you think that's a different thing?
That aspect of it, definitely. I feel like more open to people like giving me feedback on the songs, and hugely in other ways it's influenced my songwriting massively. Like, I think one of the biggest things with writing poems, is that I feel like I'm able to cover certain topics that I would never think to write a song about.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, for example, the other week I wrote like I wrote 3 poems, and they were all about Aussie rules football, and I am not a football fan.
How did that come about then?
Well, that came about so I found out some local history of my little town in Western Australia called Bridgetown, and that was that there was a young Noongar man. Noongar are the Indigenous people in the southwest, and his name was John Parfitt, but his nickname was Nookum, and he was a star football player in Bridgetown. And but at the time, this is 1907 or something, he wasn't able to, he was like the celebration of his football team because he was just a brilliant player. And all his teammates loved him. And he was like of really high standing in the community as well. He was like, he worked on farms and the farmers really loved him and taught him English and taught him how to read and write. And so he was sort of in 2 worlds, really. He's still with his Indigenous family and community, but also sort of accepted to a degree within non-Indigenous society. And he wasn't allowed to go to the pub after like a victory or after, whenever the teammates wanted to go. But his picture was hanging in the pub. So, so anyway, so it started like that, and I wrote 3 poems, and the first one is about the rules of football, which I just wrote into a poem. The second is a letter that he wrote asking for permission from the protector of Aborigines, Mr. A.O. Neville at the time, to be granted permission to go into the pub. And then the third was sort of the response, which was basically no, and then I wrote that into a sonnet. So yeah,
wow.
But all through football. It's called Aussie Rules. These 3 parts. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Are you publishing those anywhere or
I hope to. Anywhere? Yeah, I will. I've published a few now, or not myself, but I've had like some journals and some websites publish some poems, and I'd love to work towards a collection at some time. So I'm sort of I've probably got 50 or something like that poems now, but like I said, they're all you're just constantly editing, and some I feel like I wouldn't want to touch, and then others I'm like, oh, it's like tempting to just go back in there and
that's interesting.
Fiddle.
That. I mean, I've never thought of it like the poems that are just that you can go back and edit. That's kind of quite cool in the way that over a 10-year span you might release a collection of poems in 10 years, but you've been working on them for that long or something.
Yeah, it's a really different. And also there's so little money in poetry, even less than music. So it's like really feels like doing it for all the right reasons, I think. I mean, I do music for the right reasons as well, but it's also
we do it for the little money that we get.
Yeah, no, totally.
Love scraping around.
Woo! Yeah. So again, that's another thing that just like brings me into the whole love of the process, I suppose, and exploring topics and like I said, just the sorts of things that I'm not sure that I would write. I wouldn't write a song that like has the rules of Australian footy in it, probably. So it's quite fun.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never. I think I would be up for doing some poetry.
Yeah.
It's one of those. I mean, I'm writing more words now than I've ever written before. They turn into songs, and actually, now going back through my notebooks, I'm realizing that I'm writing way more that doesn't get used.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes I use that as a springboard. So when I'm writing a new song or something, I'll flick back through and just see what murmuration of words what's been sort of been regurgitated over the last 6 months or something, and maybe there's a little kind of nugget in there, but it's a different discipline, I guess, if you're turning those into poems but a nice one as well.
That's interesting because that's partly why I started as well. Excuse me. I just felt like I've got so many words, and I really like some of them, but I also felt like that. Yeah, I just haven't found the right music for them, or maybe they belong as something else. And I've done that a couple of times. Actually, one poem that I had written a song, and then I ended up not being completely satisfied with the song, so I have just taken the lyrics and turned them into a poem. So, yeah. So that can be fun.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, you've written an album, mainly theme about climate change.
Yeah.
But do you know what the next kind of vibe is? Have you written 39 songs for the next record yet? You've got one more to go.
Not yet. I've written about 11 or 12, and I feel like I'm slightly more than halfway there. But
cool. So
tomorrow, actually, or this week, I've got 2 days with the guys, and so I'm really looking forward to that because what we spoke about before. But I feel like once we start arranging them, then from there I'm going to really have like this more direction in my writing, where it's been completely, wide open. So there is a bit of a theme developing. I haven't worked out the best way to talk about it in a way that won't waffle on for ages and ages, but it's inspired by, I think the best way to sum it up is this quote by Virginia Woolf, which is something like, I went to write about death, but life came bursting in, or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's sort of the best way of, summing it up so far.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's exciting, isn't it? I mean, it's, moving from the last record into the new.
Yeah, and have you been recording already?
Yes, started recording.
Amazing.
Yeah. And it feels amazing because I think I had like 15 or 16 songs for the record. But actually we ended up taking a short list, and then I've written a few more to kind of now come along with those songs.
Yeah.
But it's just so great to collaborate with somebody, because I just spent so long, last year writing all those songs, and then just being on my own with them or sending them to my manager and getting responses, but not being able to get into a room and just play them and have somebody just play on them and bring their own,
sort of bring them to life in some ways, don't they? It's sort of just it adds so much colour and texture and all the things.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear.
It's super exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you to get back into the
into that
process.
phase. Yeah.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, it's been so lovely. It's so nice because we often have these sorts of chats anyway, don't we?
We do, yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why I thought of you, because I was, going to, what was the last time? We had that lovely chat about, it was actually when you were doing that course, we had a chat about poetry when we were driving to Long Road.
Yeah, that's right. The Long Road Festival, and we did Folk in a Box there.
We did do Folk in a Box.
Yeah, that was great. Although I realised on that drive up to, where was that? Was it in Leicestershire, I think? Yeah. Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
I realised on that drive when you said, "Oh, that truck's number plate is really funny," and I was like, "The truck has a number plate. Where is the number plate? I can't." And then I was like, "I can't even see the number plate. Let alone." I realised that I was a bit blind. That I'd sort of gone a bit.
I was like, "Can you not read that?"
And I was like, "What? I don't even know. I can't even see where the number plate is." Yeah, and then we were testing out signs, and you were like, "Okay, what does that sign say?" I was like, "No, don't know." So hence,
am I insured on this van or?
Got some glasses now, so yeah.
Is there any life for Folk in the Box?
Not yet. Definitely
not.
Not
really
yet.
COVID friendly,
It's really not. No. Yeah. Next year, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we're about to head off to Australia for five months actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
October to end of March. I can't wait. It's been a very long time since I saw my family, so cannot wait to see them.
I hope you have a wonderful time.
Oh, it's going to be beautiful. Yeah.
Oh.
I honestly cannot wait to see everyone. And I've got a new niece, so I'm just going to cuddle the hell out of all the kids. It'd be great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but next year we'll do Folk in a Box again for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to do it again. I loved it.
Yeah, it was good fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not very COVID friendly, is it?
No, sadly not.
When's your next? You've got a gig this weekend. Next weekend.
Yes, got a couple this weekend. Got Coddingham Folk Festival on Saturday, and then Red Rooster, and that's the first one with the band because we've had all the others cancelled. So I haven't played with. Oh, really? I haven't played out with the band. We did the live stream for the album launch in November last year, but I haven't played with the band since we made the album in November 2019. Whoa. Apart from that live stream that we did, but I haven't done a gig with them since 2019. I cannot wait.
Strange.
I still don't.
Strange, isn't it?
It's so weird. I can't quite believe that it's gonna until we're like on stage and actually playing. Then, because we have to do COVID tests and everything, and you know.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah.
I feel fine, but Rob's been at Green Man all weekend, so I mean, hopefully, all totally fine. But you know, life is so tenuous at the moment, isn't it? Plans are.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. In fact, I woke up this morning with a sore throat.
A
little
really?
bit of a sore throat.
Yeah.
And I was like, straight, I had to do a test because I was like, it would just, the impact of me, well, you know, in terms of the people that you're connected with your plans this week and my housemate.
I know. Everything.
And we're going to uni, just like, it would just, could impact so many things, couldn't it?
Yeah, it really could.
So we do live on tenterhooks with that kind of thing with our work at the moment, especially.
Yeah,
so,
we do.
Yeah, I hope it all goes well for you.
Yeah, and likewise for you. Oh, good to speak to you.
It's lovely to speak to you, mate.
Yeah.
I will see you soon.